I'm writing this from a motel room somewhere off Interstate 89. The door is locked, chair wedged under the handle, and I've checked the windows 3 times in the last hour. My laptop screen is the only light, and I keep glancing at the mirror across from the bed, watching my reflection like it might do something I don't expect. My name is Thomas Crane. I'm an investigative journalist, or at least I was. After tonight, I don't know what I am anymore. What I do know is that I need to tell someone what I found at St. Dominic's Seminary before it's too late, before they find me, or before I go back on my own. Because part of me wants to go back. That's the worst part. Let me start 3 weeks ago, when this nightmare began. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning, sitting on my desk at the Burlington Chronicle between a press release about a new shopping center and my half-empty coffee mug. No return address. My name and the newspaper's address typed on an old typewriter, the letters slightly uneven. Inside was a single sheet of paper with 4 sentences. There is something wrong at St. Dominic's Seminary in Ashford, New Hampshire. Children who never leave. Prayers said in reverse. Someone needs to know. I'll admit, my first instinct was to throw it away. I'd been a journalist for 12 years, and anonymous tips were usually either hoaxes or conspiracy theorists with too much time on their hands. Religious conspiracy theorists were a special breed, convinced that every church was hiding satanic rituals in the basement. But I kept it. Something about the typed letters, the age of the paper, the complete lack of dramatic flair. Whoever sent it wasn't trying to convince me. They were simply stating facts, hoping someone would listen. I did a quick search. St. Dominic's Seminary was real, established in 1904, tucked away in the White Mountains. It trained priests and ran a small boarding school for troubled youth. Very private, very traditional. Nothing scandalous in its history that I could find. I probably would have forgotten about it entirely if the second letter hadn't arrived 5 days later. This one contained a photograph, black and white, aged and slightly bent. A group of 12 boys in altar server robes standing in front of a Gothic stone building. The photo quality suggested late 80s, maybe early 90s. One boy's face was circled in red ink. A kid, maybe 13 or 14, dark hair, solemn expression. On the back, written in shaky handwriting. This is me. 1987. I'm still there. Please help us. I stared at that photograph for 20 minutes. The building in the background matched the seminary from the website of photos. The boy's face. There was something desperate in his eyes, even captured in that frozen moment decades ago. If this was a hoax, it was an elaborate one. I made the call that afternoon. St. Dominic's Seminary, how may I help you? The voice was elderly, refined, with the careful diction of someone who'd spent their life in religious service. Hello, my name is Thomas Crane. I'm a journalist with the Burlington Chronicle. I'm working on a piece about traditional Catholic education, and I wondered if I might visit your seminary for a day or two, interview some staff, observe classes, that sort of thing. There was a long pause. I could hear breathing on the other end, the faint sound of pages turning. We don't typically allow journalists, Mr. Crane. We value our privacy here. I understand completely. I'm not looking for anything controversial. Quite the opposite. I want to write about institutions that maintain traditional values in modern times. St. Dominic's has been operating for over a century. That's worth celebrating. Another pause. More page turning. I suppose, yes, that would be acceptable. This is Father Gregory speaking. I'm the headmaster here. You may visit for 2 days. I'll need you to arrive on a Wednesday. Does next week suit you? That would be perfect. Excellent. I'll email you directions. Fair warning, Mr. Crane. Our location is quite remote. Cell phone service is unreliable. But I'm sure a bit of disconnection will be good for you. The way he said that last part made my skin prickle. The drive to St. Dominic's took 4 hours, the last 90 minutes on increasingly narrow roads that wound through dense forest. My phone lost signal after the first hour. The GPS kept working, thankfully, leading me deeper into the White Mountains. The trees pressed close on both sides, mostly pine and birch, their branches creating a canopy that blocked out much of the afternoon sun. I passed maybe 3 other cars the entire way. No gas stations, no houses, no signs of civilization. When the iron gates finally appeared, I almost missed them. They were set back from the road, partially hidden by overgrown bushes, black iron twisted into religious symbols I didn't recognize. The gate stood open, permanently it seemed, rust having fused the hinges. The driveway was gravel, winding upward through more trees. Then the forest opened up, and I saw it. St. Dominic's Seminary rose against the darkening sky like something from another century. Gothic revival architecture, all dark stone and pointed arches, towers reaching upward with crosses at their peaks. Ivy covered much of the western wall. The windows were narrow, some stained glass, others just dark panes that reflected nothing. It looked exactly like the building in the photograph. I parked in a small lot beside what appeared to be a chapel. As I got out, the silence hit me. No birds, no wind through the trees, just stillness, the kind of quiet that makes you aware of your own breathing. Mr. Crane, welcome. I spun around. A man stood at the top of the stone steps, leading to the main entrance. Elderly, perhaps mid-70s, wearing the traditional black cassock of a Catholic priest. His hair was white, neatly trimmed, his face lined but strong. He descended the steps with surprising agility. Father Gregory? I extended my hand. His grip was firm, cool. His eyes were pale blue, studying me with an intensity that made me want to look away. I trust you had no trouble finding us. We're quite isolated, as you can see. Some find it unsettling. Others find it peaceful. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Which are you, Mr. Crane? Still deciding. Honest, I appreciate that. Come, let me show you to your room. You must be tired from the drive. We'll have dinner at 6 o'clock, and I can give you a proper tour afterward. He led me inside. The entrance hall was cavernous, stone floors worn smooth by a century of footsteps. Religious paintings lined the walls, scenes from the Bible, all rendered in dark, somber colors. A massive wooden crucifix dominated the far wall, Christ's suffering captured in excruciating detail. The seminary was built in 1904, Father Gregory said, as we climbed a wide staircase. Funded by a wealthy Catholic family who wanted to ensure traditional priesthood training continued in New England. We've changed very little since then. We believe in maintaining tradition. How many students do you have currently? 12 boys in our boarding school. They're here because traditional education failed them, or because their families wanted a more structured environment. We have 6 seminarians training for priesthood and 3 other priests besides myself on staff. He showed me to a room on the 3rd floor, small, Spartan, a single bed, a wooden desk, a crucifix on the wall, a dresser. The window looked out over the forest. I hope you'll be comfortable. Bathroom is down the hall. Dinner is in the refectory. I'll come collect you at 5:45. He left, closing the door softly. I heard his footsteps fade down the hallway. I sat on the bed and looked around. The room was clean but felt unused, like a hotel room that's never quite warm. I tried my phone. No signal, as expected. I'd brought my laptop, a notebook, a camera, standard journalist kit. I spent the next hour exploring the immediate area. The hallway had 6 other rooms, all closed. The bathroom was vintage, pedestal sink, clawfoot tub, everything clean but ancient. At the end of the hall was a window that looked down on a courtyard enclosed by the seminary's wings. That's when I saw them. 12 boys, walking in a double line, all wearing identical dark blazers and slacks. They moved with perfect synchronization, like soldiers. An older priest, not Father Gregory, led them across the courtyard toward what looked like a classroom building. Even from 3 stories up, I could see something was off. The boys didn't talk, didn't look around, didn't fidget. They just walked, staring straight ahead. I watched until they disappeared into the building. Then I pulled out the photograph from my bag and studied the circled face again. I'm still there. Father Gregory knocked at exactly 5:45. He escorted me down a different staircase, through a series of corridors, to a large dining hall. Long wooden tables, high ceilings, more religious imagery on the walls. A smaller table sat on a raised platform at one end, clearly for the priests. "You'll sit with us," Father Gregory said. "The boys eat after evening prayers." 2 other priests were already seated. Father Gregory introduced them as Father Anthony and Father Michael. Anthony was younger, maybe 50, with nervous energy and quick movements. Michael was closer to 60, heavy-set, with small dark eyes that watched me constantly. Dinner was simple: roasted chicken, vegetables, bread. The priest spoke little, asking me polite questions about my work, my drive, my newspaper. Nothing about why I was really there. Nothing that felt genuine. At exactly 6:30, a bell rang somewhere in the building. "Evening prayers," Father Gregory said. "The boys will eat now. Perhaps you'd like to observe. For your article." "I'd appreciate that." We moved to the far end of the hall, standing near the wall. The doors opened, and the 12 boys filed in. Up close, I could see them more clearly. They ranged in age from what looked like 10 to 16. All pale, not just winter pale, but bloodless looking. Their eyes were distant, unfocused, like people heavily medicated. They sat in perfect unison, hands folded, heads bowed. Father Anthony led them in prayer, Latin, traditional. The boys responded in monotone unison. Then they ate, mechanically, slowly, no one speaking, no one making eye contact. It was like watching robots programmed to simulate eating. I noticed one boy, maybe 13, dark hair, thin face. He looked almost exactly like the boy in the photograph, just younger. "That's Peter," Father Gregory said quietly, following my gaze. Bright child, but troubled. His family sent him here 2 years ago. Can I speak with him? For the article ? Perhaps tomorrow. They need their rest after meals. We keep a very structured schedule. The boys finished eating, stood in unison, and filed out. The entire meal had taken exactly 20 minutes. Our tour, Father Gregory prompted. He showed me the chapel, beautiful in a severe way, all stone and stained glass and shadows. The classrooms full of old desks and older textbooks. The library, thousands of leather-bound volumes, many in Latin. The dormitories, where the boys slept in narrow beds with thin mattresses. Everything was meticulously maintained, but felt frozen, like walking through a museum of a life being lived rather than actually living it. We'll let you rest, Father Gregory finally said, leading me back toward my room. Breakfast is at 7 o'clock. You're welcome to attend morning prayers at 6:30 if you'd like. Thank you, Father. Sleep well, Mr. Crane. And please, stay in your room after dark. The seminary is old, and the corridors can be confusing at night. We've had guests get lost before. The way he said it felt less like helpful advice and more like a warning. I tried to sleep. I really did. But something was wrong. The silence was too complete. No sounds of pipes or settling wood or distant traffic. Nothing. Just oppressive quiet that made every breath seem too loud. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind running through everything I'd seen. The boys' vacant expressions, the perfect synchronization. Father Gregory's watchful eyes. Then, at exactly 3:17, I heard it. Chanting, faint but clear, coming from somewhere below. Latin words in a strange rhythm, rising and falling like a tide. I got out of bed, pulled on jeans and a sweatshirt, and eased my door open. The hallway was dark, lit only by dim emergency lights near the stairwell. The chanting was louder now, echoing up through the building's stone bones. I followed it down. 2 floors, then a side corridor I hadn't seen during the tour. The chanting was coming from the chapel. The main doors were closed, but there was a side entrance, a small wooden door that was slightly ajar. I approached carefully, each footstep seeming impossibly loud despite the thick carpet runner. Through the gap, I could see inside. The 12 boys stood in a circle in the center of the chapel. Father Gregory, Father Anthony, and Father Michael stood around them, holding candles. The only light came from those candles and the dim glow of the altar candles behind them. They were chanting, but it was wrong. I'd heard Latin prayers before. My ex-girlfriend had been Catholic, and I'd attended Mass with her. This was Latin, but the cadence was backward, like someone had recorded a prayer and played it in reverse. The words tangled in my ears, making my head ache. One boy stood in the center of the circle. Not Peter, another one, younger, maybe 10. He was trembling, his mouth moving soundlessly. Father Gregory raised his hands. The chanting intensified. The boy in the center suddenly went rigid, his back arching, his hands clawing at the air. Then he screamed. Not a child's scream. Something older, deeper, full of a despair that made my stomach turn. The sound bounced off the stone walls, multiplying until I couldn't tell if it was one voice or 100. The priests kept chanting. The other boys swayed slightly, their mouths moving in sync with the backward prayer. I stumbled away from the door, my heart hammering. Whatever I'd just witnessed wasn't a prayer. It was something else entirely. I made it back to my room, shut the door, and pushed the desk chair under the handle. Morning came eventually. I hadn't slept more than an hour, dozing fitfully before jerking awake, convinced I could still hear that terrible scream. At 6:55, I gave up and got dressed. My hands shook as I tied my shoes. Father Gregory was waiting in the hallway. "Good morning, Mr. Cochrane. You look tired. I hope the accommodations were comfortable?" "Fine. Just adjusting to a new place." "Of course. Come, breakfast is ready." The priest ate in silence again. I forced down toast and eggs, my stomach churning. Through the windows, I could see the boys in the courtyard, standing in their perfect lines. "Father Gregory," I said carefully, "I'd like to look at some of the school's records, enrollment numbers, that sort of thing. It would add authenticity to my article." His fork paused halfway to his mouth. "Records? Just general information when students typically enroll, how long they stay, academic outcomes." He set down his fork, dabbing at his mouth with a napkin. "I suppose that would be acceptable. Father Anthony, would you show Mr. Crane to the administrative office after breakfast?" Father Anthony nodded, his nervous energy seeming even more pronounced this morning. The administrative office was on the second floor, a cluttered room full of filing cabinets and old wooden desks. Father Anthony unlocked it, turned on the lights. "The enrollment records are in these cabinets," he said, gesturing to a bank of drawers against the far wall. "I need to attend to morning prayers. Will you be all right here?" "Absolutely. Thank you, Father." He left, and I heard his footsteps fade down the corridor. I immediately went to the filing cabinets. They were organized by decade, each drawer labeled. I started with the 1980s. The files were handwritten on forms that had barely changed in decades: name, age, parent information, enrollment date, departure date. Most days were 2 to 4 years, normal for a boarding school. Then I found Peter Sutton, enrolled September 1987, age 13, departure date, blank. I pulled more files, found him again. Peter Sutton, enrolled September 1994, age 13, departure date, blank. Peter Sutton, enrolled September 2003, age 13. Peter Sutton, enrolled September 2015, age 13. Peter Sutton, enrolled September 2023, age 13. My hands started shaking. I pulled more files, cross-referencing names. All 12 boys. Their names appeared over and over, spanning decades, always the same ages, always with blank departure dates. I found the photograph matches. Every one of the boys in that 1987 photograph had files going back to the 1950s, appearing repeatedly, sometimes decades apart. I was so focused on the files that I didn't hear the door open. "You've seen something you shouldn't have, haven't you, Mr. Crane?" Father Gregory stood in the doorway, his pale eyes fixed on me. Father Anthony and Father Michael appeared behind him, blocking any escape. "These records," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "The same boys, the same names, across decades. What is this?" Close the files, Mr. Crane. I want to leave. Now. I'm afraid that's not possible. Not yet. Father Gregory stepped into the room. Not until you understand. Father Anthony moved to block the window. Father Michael closed the door behind them. We're not going to hurt you, Father Gregory said, but we can't let you leave until you know the truth, because you'll tell people. And if people come here, if they tear this place down, he shook his head, the consequences would be catastrophic. Then tell me, what the hell is going on here? Come with us. They led me through corridors I hadn't seen, downstairs that seemed to descend far deeper than the building's foundation should allow. The walls changed from plaster to stone, growing rougher, older. The air grew cold and damp. Finally, we reached a door, heavy wood, bound with iron. Father Gregory produced an old key, the lock mechanism grinding as he turned it. Beyond was a chamber carved from living rock. The walls were covered in names, hundreds of them, thousands maybe, scratched and carved into the stone. Dates beside them going back centuries. Some names appeared multiple times with different dates, decades apart. In the center of the chamber was a depression in the floor, circular, maybe 10 feet across. The stone there was darker, stained with something I didn't want to identify. This is where it began, Father Gregory said quietly. 1904. The seminary was built on this land because the church knew something was here, something old, something that needed to be contained. He gestured to the walls. These names, they're not just records. They're witnesses, victims, people touched by what sleeps here. I don't understand. In 1904, the first priests came here to build the seminary. They were good men, devout men. But something happened that first winter. 7 local children disappeared. Their bodies were found here, in this chamber. The priests were blamed. The community wanted blood. Father Gregory's voice was steady, almost hypnotic. The priests insisted they were innocent, but they performed last rites anyway, trying to give the children peace. Only something went wrong. The ritual, the location, the tragedy. It created a binding. The children didn't pass on. They remained trapped between life and death. The 12 boys, I whispered. Not quite. Those 7 children were the first. Over the years, others joined them. Children who died on this land, their souls caught in the same trap. Currently, there are 12. There have been as many as 15. Sometimes they fade, and we think perhaps they've finally found peace. But they always return. I stared at the names on the walls, my mind refusing to accept what he was saying. They manifest most strongly at 3:17, the time the original 7 died. During the day, they're barely conscious, going through the motions of life like sleepwalkers. At night, they're more aware, but trapped in a cycle of trauma. The prayers you witnessed were trying to release them. That didn't look like release. That looked like torture. Father Gregory's expression hardened. We're trying everything we know. Traditional rites, ancient prayers, even invocations the Vatican would consider heretical. Nothing works. They're bound here by something we don't fully understand. We can't free them, but we can keep them from suffering more than necessary. Suffering. I backed toward the door. Those boys are prisoners. You're keeping them here. We're not keeping them anywhere, Mr. Crane. They can't leave. The binding won't allow it. If this seminary is destroyed, if this chamber is disturbed, they won't be freed. They'll be scattered, unmoored, lost in the spaces between life and death. Conscious, but unable to interact with either world. An eternity of isolation. He stepped closer. We're wardens of our own failure, the church's failure. Every priest who serves here knows what we are. We devote our lives to trying to undo what was done. That's our penance. I looked at the three priests. Father Anthony was sweating despite the cold. Father Michael's face was stone. Father Gregory's eyes held genuine pain. I need to leave, I said. Tomorrow, Father Gregory said. Stay one more night. See the boys during the day. See how peaceful they are when we're caring for them properly. Then, if you still want to leave, we'll let you go. All we ask is that you don't tell anyone. Let us continue our work in peace. I didn't have much choice. 3 priests, 1 door, and I was deep underground in a place no one knew I was visiting. 1 more night, I agreed. They took me back to my room. No locks on the doors, no guards. But Father Gregory's words echoed in my mind. We can't let you leave until you understand. I spent the day observing. The boys went through their routines, classes, meals, prayers. Up close, I could see what Father Gregory meant. They were there, but not there, responding to instruction with the blank compliance of people heavily sedated. But were they at peace? Or was this just a different kind of suffering? I tried talking to Peter during afternoon break. The boys stood in the courtyard, not playing, just standing in small groups. Peter, can you hear me? His eyes focused on me slowly, like someone waking from a deep sleep. Cold, he whispered. So cold. Peter, listen to me. I'm going to help you. I'm going to... No help. His voice was distant, hollow. No way out, just cold. Always cold. The priests say they're trying to free you. Something changed in his expression. For just a moment, awareness flared in his eyes. Lying, he breathed. They're lying. Then Father Anthony called the boys back inside, and Peter shuffled away, that brief spark of consciousness gone. I should have run, should have climbed out my window, stolen a car, something. But I needed to know the truth. That night, I stayed awake. At 3:17, I heard the chanting again. This time, I was ready. I made my way down quietly, avoiding the main routes. The seminary was dark, but I'd memorized the layout. I reached the chapel through a different entrance, a small sacristy door that led behind the altar. From there, I could see everything. The 12 boys stood in their circle again. The priests surrounded them, candles in hand, chanting that backward prayer. But this time, I saw what was really happening. The boys were glowing, faintly like dying embers. A pale light emanated from them, and that light was being drawn outward, pulled toward the priests like water down a drain. Father Gregory stood directly in the light's flow. As I watched, the lines on his face seemed to soften. His posture straightened. The age spots on his hands faded. They weren't trying to free the boys. They were feeding on them. The chanting reached a crescendo. The boy in the center, the same one from the previous night, screamed again. But this time, the sound was weaker, more tired, like someone who'd screamed so often they could barely manage it anymore. The light intensified, then suddenly cut off. The boy collapsed. The other boys swayed but remained standing. Father Gregory took a deep breath, rolling his shoulders like someone after a good workout. He looked 20 years younger than he had at dinner. "That should sustain us another week," he said to the other priests. His voice was stronger, more vigorous. Father Anthony was examining his hands in wonder. "Every time, I forget what it feels like to not ache, to not feel decay." Father Michael said nothing, but I could see the satisfaction on his face. I backed away from the door, my mind reeling. The trapped souls, the prayers, the guardianship. It was all a lie. The priests weren't wardens. They were parasites, farming the boys' life force, their essence, whatever you wanted to call it. How long had this been going on? The chamber dated back to 1904. The names on the walls. Were they all victims? Sacrifices to keep these priests alive? Young? Healthy? I needed evidence. My phone wouldn't work, but it had a camera. I pulled it out, set it to silent, and started taking photos through the sacristy door. The boys, the priests, the glowing light. The flash must have activated because suddenly Father Gregory's head snapped toward my hiding place. "Someone's there." I ran through the chapel, down corridors, my footsteps thundering on the stone floors. Behind me, I heard the priests shouting, their footsteps in pursuit. I reached the main entrance, threw open the doors. The cold night air hit me like a wall. I sprinted toward the parking lot, fumbling for my car keys. My car was blocked. They'd parked 2 other vehicles behind it, boxing me in. I could hear them coming. I ran for the forest instead. The trees swallowed me immediately. No moon, just absolute darkness and branches tearing at my clothes and face. I ran blindly, one hand on my phone, trying to keep it safe. Behind me, flashlights bobbed between the trees. I ran for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. My lungs burned. Branches had cut my face and hands. Finally, I couldn't hear pursuit anymore. I hid behind a massive pine tree, catching my breath. Checked my phone. Still no signal. But the photos were there. Proof. In the distance, I saw lights. Not flashlights. The seminary, lit from within. Every window glowing. And in each window, I could see them. The 12 boys standing motionless, looking out into the forest, looking directly at where I was hiding. Then I heard it. Not footsteps. Singing. The boys were singing. That same backward prayer, but their voices carried through the forest, surrounding me from all directions. It was impossible. They were in the building, but I could hear them everywhere at once. The sound pulled at something inside me, made me want to walk back, to give in, to stop fighting. I forced myself to move, stumbling deeper into the forest. Eventually, I found the road. It took another hour of walking before I got far enough for my phone to pick up a signal. I called 911, then a taxi from the nearest town. That was 3 days ago. The police went to St. Dominic's Seminary. They found it abandoned. No priests, no boys, no evidence anyone had been there in months. The enrollment records I'd seen were gone. The building was locked up, covered in dust, like it had been empty for years. They think I had some kind of breakdown, that the isolation got to me. They're being polite about it, but I can see it in their eyes. I still have the photos on my phone, but when I try to show people, the images are corrupted, just static and dark shapes that could be anything. The anonymous letters are gone. I swear I put them in my bag, but they're not there anymore. The photograph too. No one believes me. But here's the thing that keeps me awake at night, staring at myself in the mirror. I look exactly the same as I did 3 weeks ago. Same lines on my face, same grey hairs at my temples. Exactly the same. But I feel older, drained, like something inside me is being slowly pulled away. And there's a mark on my wrist. Small, circular, like a burn. I don't remember getting it. But when I traced my steps, I realized I must have touched something in that underground chamber. One of the walls, maybe, or the stained floor. At night, I hear singing. That backward prayer, faint but unmistakable. It's calling me. Part of me wants to go back, needs to go back. Like an itch I can't scratch, a word on the tip of my tongue, a place I've forgotten but desperately need to find. I researched the area. St. Dominic's Seminary officially closed in 1994, but property records show it's been maintained by the diocese ever since. Someone's paying the bills. Someone's keeping it ready. For what? For whom? I found 3 other names online. People who claim to have visited St. Dominic's. People who told similar stories. Their posts are old, scattered across obscure forums. All 3 disappeared within a year of their posts. No police reports, no missing persons cases. They just stopped existing online and off. I think about those scratches I saw behind the dresser in my room, names and dates, previous visitors. How long until my name joins them? I'm writing this as a warning. If you hear about St. Dominic's Seminary, if someone sends you a letter or a photograph, if an anonymous tip crosses your desk, ignore it. Don't investigate. Don't go looking. The Catholic Church holds dark secrets. Some of them are kept to protect people from the truth. Others are kept to protect the truth from people. I never should have investigated them. And now I can feel it. Every night, the pull gets stronger. The singing gets louder. The mark on my wrist burns colder. Tomorrow, I might be strong enough to resist. But what about next week? Next month? Eventually, I'm going to get in my car and drive back to those iron gates. I'm going to walk back into that Gothic stone building. And when I do, I'll become another name carved in stone, another soul feeding the parasites who wear priests' cassocks. I'm writing this now, while I still can, while I still have enough of myself left to warn others. If you're reading this, if I disappear, tell someone, tell everyone. Maybe enough voices can force the church to act, to investigate, to stop what's happening there. Or maybe I'll just become another cautionary tale, another conspiracy theory, another paranoid journalist who lost his mind. I keep checking the mirror, looking for changes, waiting to see if I'm aging faster or slower, or if I'm already becoming something else. The mark is spreading. It's not just a circle anymore. There are lines radiating from it, like roots climbing up my arm, and I can see them in the mirror sometimes. When the light hits just right, when I'm tired and the room is quiet. 12 boys standing behind me. Not threatening, just waiting. They know I'm coming back. So do I. God help me, I don't think I can stop it. This is Thomas Crane, signing off. If you hear about St. Dominic's Seminary, run. Don't make my mistake. Some secrets are meant to stay buried. Some churches hold more than faith, and some prayers are spoken backward for a reason.